The Bible is a living word that reads us as we read it. It's a person, a voice that proves that time is not linear, as one sentence can confirm the past, guide the present, and declare the future. You are here. I am here. He is here. We are here right now. In the tomorrow of yesterday and in the yesterday of tomorrow, I thank you for joining today. So we're back. Thank you so much for joining once again. Our last episode, we talked about the really big ask that God made when he asked Abraham to give up Isaac. Now, Isaac was this son that Abraham waited for 25 years, the son that would carry on this covenant promise that God made to Abraham. And Isaac was Abraham and Sarah's miracle child. But God asked Abraham for him, asked him to sacrifice Isaac, and Isaac, without hesitation, took Isaac up the mountain and was fully prepared to sacrifice his son, knowing, understanding, and realizing that everything that God gives us still belongs to God. So when he asks us for something that already belongs to him, it should be easy for us to release it. So this episode, time has passed. Sarah has aged, and she reached the point of her expiration date at the age of 127 years old, or years young, depending on how you want to look at it. She transitioned, or she passed away. And Abraham had to mourn her. He had to grieve this incredible woman who moved with faith right along with him, who had his back when it came to facing different kings to spare his life, and was willing to be mildly deceptive and even saying, hey, that's my brother, that's not my husband. And this woman who was willing to watch Abraham have a child with another woman when she herself could not. Now, mind you, she was human. She had her own things, her own feelings and emotions. We have those. But at the end of the day, Sarah was an incredible woman. And now Abraham is faced with the decision of what to do with her. And so he brokers this deal with some locals, the Hittites. And it was a really big real estate deal where essentially he bought a permanent burial place for him and his family. And so, much like a pre-need of these days, he already made arrangements. He made arrangements for his wife, for himself, and for his descendants, so that they would have this place where they could be laid to rest. So, as Abraham is aging, he talks to his servant. He realizes, he's like, I'm just not moving like I used to move. I'm not seeing like I used to see. Like, I'm getting up there in age. And so he calls one of his servants. He's like, hey, young buck, come here. Let me talk to you for a second. And he tells him, he's like, listen, I'm going to go pretty soon. I just have a feeling. It's really important to me that you find a wife for my son Isaac back in my homeland, because I don't want him marrying one of these chicks out here. Like, it's not going to be good for him. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to go back to my homeland, and I need you to find him a wife from one of my relatives, or find him a wife that is one of my relatives. And the servant was like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, I'm down with all that. But here's the thing. Your homeland is far. It's far away from here. So what if I find this woman, but she's not willing to come back here? And Abraham pretty much said, like, yo, if you find somebody, but she's not willing to come back here, you're free of this obligation. And so Abraham also emphasize the importance that this servant not let Isaac go back to his homeland. He's like, I don't want him marrying some chick from out here, but I also don't want him going back to the homeland because if he, like, God gave us this land right here. So I don't want him going backwards. And so, anyway, the servant went on about his way. He loaded up 10 camels full of expensive gifts and he goes on this quest to find a wife for Isaac. So he makes it to Abraham's homeland, Padan Aram, and he is just kind of chilling by the wells or by a well with the camels. And so, well, not well, by a well, and with some camels, with the camels, and he sits and he just kind of talks to God, and he's like, "Okay, Lord, I don't know how I'm gonna go about doing this, but I need a wife for Isaac. Uh, okay, here's the thing. I'm gonna ask one of these women when they come to draw water. I'm gonna ask one of them to give me a drink, and if one of these women is willing to give me a drink of water and also volunteers to give my camels drink, then she's got to be the one. Let that be the sign that she's the one." Before he could even finish this thought process, Rebecca enters the scene. Okay. And the servant asks her, he's like, "Oh, greetings. I'm so I'm so parched. Do you mind? Can I get a drink?" And Rebecca's like, "Bet, I got you." And she takes a water jug and she gives him something to drink. And she's like, "Oh, your camels look like they look thirsty too. Like, I got them. Let me get them something to drink while I'm at it." And the servant sits back and he just watches Rebecca going through all of the labor to draw water from this well to make sure that 10 camels have enough water to drink. And I imagine that this servant was elated and beside himself because he's like, "Look at this woman. Like, not only was she hospitable enough to give me something to drink, she's very kind. She's not hard on the eyes. And she's not afraid to work. Like, she volunteered to add work on herself by giving my camel something to drink. Like, this woman is, yeah, she's gotta be it." So anyway, he's observing, and I'm sure he's having this inner dialogue with himself. And when she finishes all of this hard work, he pulls out a gold nose ring and two gold bracelets, and he gives them to her. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, like, I was just trying to make sure you had something to drink, and she accepted the gift. And he's like, "Yo, who are your people?" Like, and she's just like, "Oh, my daddy, he's Bethul, and like, yeah, like that's my people and my mom." So she kind of tells him who her family is. And the servant is checking off all these boxes because Bethuel was Abraham's nephew. And so he's like, "Okay, cool. She passed the first test. She gave me something to drink. She gave the camel something to drink. Like, she's from Abraham's people. She's beautiful, like." So he asked her, he said, "Yo, do you have extra room for us to, like, stay for the night?" And she like, "Yeah, we got guest room. We got enough. Hey, we make sure your camels are good and everything. Like, you can go." So she goes and she talks to her family and fills her family in on what just happened. Like, "Look at my look at my new bling." And so her brother, Laban was his name. Um, Laban sees this gold and he sees dollar signs. So he's like, yeah. So he runs back to the well and he's like, "Hey, what's up, man? Like, I'm Laban. It's good to meet you, whatever. Like, you ain't got to kick it here. You can come back to the house. We'll take care of you. Like, we'll eat. You can sleep there and everything." And so Laban invited him to the home place. And They're preparing this meal, about to sit and dine, and the servant's like, "Yo, before we even start breaking bread and everything, like, let me let you know why I'm here." So the servant gives them the rundown, and he's like, "Okay, so my master is this dude named Abraham, really wealthy guy. He came from this hometown here. Um, wealthy man, but he's up in age, like, and he's gonna leave all of his wealth to his son Isaac." And the servant gives them like pretty much their life history. Like God told him to leave here and gave him a promise, and Sarah had trouble having babies, and he's a miracle baby and all the things. Like he gave them the run down, and then he lets them know like since Abraham's getting kind of old, like he told me to find a wife for his son Isaac, and then he told me I had to come here and find somebody who's one of his relatives. And then all of a sudden, and I was praying and I asked God, I said, God, give me like let this be the sign. And so you were the sign. You did all of the things. And so I'm just saying like things seem to be kind of mathing for me. So what do you think? Like you down? And Laban and Bethuel, the brother and the father, which is like sounds like God to me, like you can have her and Rebecca will go back with you. She will be Isaac's wife. And so the servant was really, really excited. Like he accomplished this mission with ease. And he ends up getting more of the gifts and lavishing the family with gifts. And then they break bread and they fall asleep. And the next morning the servant is up and he's ready to go. He's ready to get back home and present this gift to his master. And um they're like, yo, just, what's the rush? Like let Rebecca just kind of stay here for like 10 days and then we'll let her go with you. And the servant's like, nah, man, that's not gonna work. 10 days? I gotta get back. So they asked Rebecca, like, yo, sis, like, how you feel about this guy? You got any weird feelings or anything? Like, are you opposed to the idea of going back? And she's just like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm good. I'll go. I'm not mad about it. And so Rebecca and some of her servant girls and even the lady who like raised her, like the nanny um or nurse, actually went back with her. And so they made this long trek back. And when they made it back, Isaac was in a field and he was meditating. And he saw the camels and he's like, oh my gosh, like that must be them. And so Rebecca also sees him and she's like, yo, who is that? And the servant's like, that's you. Like that's Isaac. That's the one that I came to get you for. And she was like, okay. And so they greeted one another and Isaac ended up marrying Rebecca, and it said that he was delighted with her. He loved her deeply and that she was a special comfort to him after the death of his mother. And we'll leave off there before we start getting into this journey that Isaac and Rebecca had together. Um we'll stop there, but for me, here's one of the big takeaways for me. God cares. He cares. He cares about all of the details of our life, and he knows before we know. In the same way that the servant prayed and asked God, like, help me to find this woman, like, and God did. He sent the servant Rebecca, and she was above and beyond what he could even think to ask for. And I encourage myself to allow God to be the center of our selection process, whether that be with our partner, our significant other, whether that be our work, whether it be where do we live, where do we stay, where do we go, how do we spend, like in every decision that we make, benefit us to invite God into that decision making. Because when he shows out, he shows out. So anyway, I'll leave you with that until until we meet again, and if the Lord shall will me to record another episode, I thank you so much again for joining. And yeah, until then, bye for now.